I want to thank you, Mr. Chairman, for holding this hearing. The three witnesses we have before this committee today collectively pose, I believe, the single greatest threat to free speech in America and the greatest threat we have to free and fair elections. Yesterday, I spent a considerable amount of time speaking with both Mr. Zuckerberg and Mr. Pichai. I have concerns about the behavior of both of their companies. I would note that Facebook is at the minimum at least trying to make some efforts in the direction of defending free speech. I appreciate their doing so. Google, I agree with the concerns that Senator Klobuchar raised. I think Google has more power than any company on the face of the planet. And the antitrust concerns are real. The impact of Google is profound. And I expect we will have continued and ongoing discussions about Google's abuse of that power and its willingness to manipulate search outcomes to influence and change election results. But today, I want to focus my questioning on Mr. Dorsey and on Twitter. Because of the three players before us, I think Twitter's conduct has by far been the most egregious. Mr. Dorsey, does Twitter have the ability to influence elections?
No.
You don't believe Twitter has any ability to influence elections?
No, we are one part of a spectrum of communication channels that people have.
So you're testifying to this committee right now that Twitter, when it silences people, when it censors people, when it blocks political speech, that has no impact on elections?
People have choice of other communication channels with which...
Not if they don't hear information. If you don't think you have the power to influence elections, why do you block anything?
Well, we have policies that are focused on making sure that more voices on the platform are possible. We see a lot of abuse and harassment, which ends up silencing people and having them leave from the platform.
All right, Mr. Dorsey, I find your opening questions, your opening answers absurd on their face. But let's talk about the last 2 weeks in particular. As you know, I have long been concerned about Twitter's pattern of censoring and silencing individual Americans with whom Twitter disagrees. But 2 weeks ago, Twitter, and to a lesser extent Facebook, crossed a threshold that is fundamental in our country. 2 weeks ago, Twitter made the unilateral decision to censor the New York Post in a series of 2 blockbuster articles, both alleging evidence of corruption against Joe Biden. The first concerning Ukraine, the second concerning communist China. And Twitter made the decision, number one, to prevent any user, from sharing those stories. And number two, you went even further and blocked the New York Post from sharing on Twitter its own reporting. Why did Twitter make the decision to censor the New York Post?
We had a hack materials policy that we...
When was that policy adopted?
In 2018, I believe.
In 2018, go ahead. What was the policy?
So the policy is around limiting the spread of materials that are hacked. We didn't want Twitter to be a distributor for hacked materials. We found that the New York Post, because it showed the direct materials, screenshots of the direct materials, and it was unclear how those were attained, that it fell under this policy. Now,
so in your view, if it's unclear the source of a document, and in this instance, the New York Post documented what it said the source was, which it said it was a laptop owned by Hunter Biden that had been turned into a repair store. So they weren't hiding what they claimed to be the source. Is it your position that Twitter, when you can't tell the source, blocks press stories?
No, not at all. Our team made a fast decision. The enforcement action, however, of blocking URLs, both in tweets and in DM, in direct messages, we believe was incorrect. And we changed it
today. Right now, the New York Post is still blocked from tweeting 2 weeks later.
Yes, they have to log into their account, which they can do at this minute, delete the original tweet, which fell under our original enforcement actions, and they can tweet the exact same material in the exact same article, and it would go through.
So, Mr. Dorsey, your ability is you have the power to force a media outlet. Let's be clear. The New York Post isn't just some random guy tweeting. The New York Post has the fourth highest circulation of any newspaper in America. The New York Post is over 200 years old. The New York Post was founded by Alexander Hamilton, and your position is that you can sit in Silicon Valley and demand of the media that you can tell them what stories they can publish, and you can tell the American people what reporting they can hear. Is that right?
No, this was every person, every account, every organization that signs up to Twitter agrees to a terms of service. Terms of service is
so media outlets must genuflect and obey your dictates if they wish to be able to communicate with readers. Is that right?
No, not at all. We recognize an error in this policy, and specifically the enforcement.
You're still blocking their posts. You're still blocking their posts. Right now, today, you're blocking their posts.
We're not blocking the posts. Anyone can tweet.
Can the New York Post post on a Twitter account?
If they go into their account.
No is your answer to that. No. Unless they reflect and agree with your dictates. Let me ask you something. You claimed it was because of a hacked materials policy. I find that facially highly dubious and clearly employed in a deeply partial way. Did Twitter block the distribution of the New York Times' story a few weeks ago that purported to be based on copies of President Trump's tax returns?
We didn't find that a violation of our terms of service and this policy in particular, because it was reporting about the material. It wasn't distributing the material.
Okay, well, that's actually not true. They posted what they purported to be original source materials, and federal law, federal statute makes it a crime, a federal felony, to distribute someone's tax returns against their knowledge. So that material was based on something that was distributed in violation of federal law, and yet Twitter gleefully allowed people to circulate that. But when the article was critical of Joe Biden, Twitter engaged in rampant censorship and silencing.
Hello, everyone. So today we're going to be talking about Jack Dorsey, the Twitter CEO, talking with Senator Ted Cruz on a video chat about Twitter censoring content, and more specifically, the New York Post. And Ted Cruz does a pretty good job of analyzing the situation here. You're talking about the New York Post. It's been around for nearly 200 years. It is one of the top 4 news outlets in the country, and it has been that way for a very long time. Twitter is a baby compared to the New York Post, but yet Twitter somehow has the capability of nullifying any information that comes out from the New York Post via their regulations. Now, Senator Ted Cruz comes out and says how they are okay with putting out Trump's tax returns. However, they're not so okay with letting out information on the Bidens. And if the Twitter CEO really truly believes that his platform does not affect elections, then of course he is just backpedaling, he is just whitewashing the issue. Because of course it does. And I would actually argue back that none of your platform's rules, your terminations of service, all of that, none of that supersedes our freedom of speech, our number 1 amendment. You have a company that set up shop in America and is now having a platform so large that everyone communicates on it, but we're not allowed to say certain things. We here at Dang It Dawn actually had our Twitter account suspended only for posting pro-Trump memes. Nothing vulgar, nothing awful, nothing any different than what we do here. It isn't nudity, it isn't violence, it isn't cursing, it isn't anti-Semitism, it isn't racism, it isn't anything that would actually matter to a society other than some type of stipulation that if I tell you the truth, it would somehow affect the election. I say everyone should be allowed to say whatever they want to about the election, whatever they want to about Joe Biden, whatever they want to about Hunter, Trump, etc., etc. You're in the limelight and you're one of the top elite people in the country. And again, people are trying to cover. Just like with Epstein, people tried to cover. And we're seeing that now with Joe Biden. There's a theme that keeps on just popping up where people that are schmoozing with the Democrats always have the media getting their back. Now it's social media. We actually went so far and got banned from YouTube itself, from another channel. Same situation. We only had one warning. They monetized us for a single day, and then boom, they took our channel from us, saying that we violated rules. And more so, it wasn't just YouTube doing it, that it was also Google itself. There were no strikes on our channel, one simple one-time warning over the course of a few years. And that big punishment was handed down without so much as one explanation as to why they were angry at us. They said they could not tolerate or allow someone to come on and say negative ideologies against the World Health Organization. We were in the midst of a lockdown, and talking bad about the people who have put you there, or saying negative things contrary to what they're trying to tell you. If you don't agree with them, silence their voice, right? Meet Jack Dorsey. But we're going to go ahead and hazard a guess that it's always the same thing. All talk, nothing ever happens. For the love of God, do something this time. This has to fit the definition of insanity by now. You're talking about stopping freedom of press. You're talking about stopping the First Amendment. How far do platforms in the United States have the right to censor anything they want to talk about? People need to leave these platforms and go somewhere else where their voice is allowed to speak. Whether you're a Trump person or not, it should very much concern you. Whether you're Republican, Democrat, whatever, this particular topic should very much concern you. They're talking about censoring someone. Yeah, maybe you don't want to listen to the quote-unquote racist, quote-unquote Trump tard. We get that. Sometimes we don't want to talk to the demon rats. But the deal is here. One day those censorships can be put on you. You may think you're righteous in putting these censorships on people, but one day it will be your voice silenced. It's the same thing with slavery. If one person's allowed to be enslaved across the globe, anyone, anywhere has the chance of that happening to them too. Doesn't matter the color. Doesn't matter the race or religion or creed or whatnot. So we should all look at this with a fine-tooth comb and get something done about it, because these platforms have all our children, all our grandchildren's brains indoctrinated into the thing. Several hours a day staring into your box, talking to Twitter. We had football players in our local area who were Twitter fans. All they did was tweet all the time. And it's like, well, you're a professional football player, aren't you? Working out and trying to live life a little bit, go out and do stuff. No, I got a twit. And I just feel like you are a twit. They have you by your toe. Everything that you do, where you live, where you go out to eat, where you work, what kind of things you like, what's your favorite color. These platforms know everything about you. When you type all of this stuff into your buddies that are on that platform, the platform still has a listing of all the things that you've said. It's invasive on its face, and more so, it's a security risk to America in general. And we would actually go as far as saying that these are treasonous behaviors. You're using selective journalism. It'd be no different than if you used propaganda, which is what this is, to incite a racial war. Don't you think those people should be tried and punished for inciting a racial war? Because that's what the media has been doing. That's what social media has been doing. How long does one suppose that you can be censored and shut up before you run out of people to censor and shut up, and they rise up? Twitter, YouTube, Facebook, Google, platforms all over the net are starting to get larger by the day. And you think, ha, we kicked them out. We got the malcontents. We got the deplorables out of here. Well, you made certain people even stronger. They noticed what you did. You knocked 1,500 African American males off of YouTube because they held a conscientious effort to think for themselves. Their fault was being part of the Republican Party. Their fault was being part of the conservative group. Their fault was actually liking Trump. You have no other reason to attack that person, but you do it anyway because you don't like their political ideologies. And maybe you don't realize it, Twitter, but you're practicing communism. You're saying that if you don't say and do the things that we say to do, then we're going to shut you down. We're going to shut you up. There are some people that get on Twitter that they have never been on Twitter before, and they try to speak to somebody or try to speak something out, and somebody flags them, and the next thing they're off the very same day. My God, I didn't know I couldn't say that. I didn't know I couldn't post that. I didn't know I couldn't do this. The rules are getting so crappy on all the platforms all across the internet that you literally can take any picture, any photograph, any GIF, any video, log, anything, and find something in it, whether it's trademark rights, maybe there's something in the sound, maybe somebody drove by with a music playing and now that's copyright. Certain things we can understand, but there are some people out there that have been banned and suspended because they only filmed their inbox. They took snapshots of their inbox and put it on their channel while they were talking about it, or they pinned their actual mailbox onto the video itself while they were doing the video, and that was enough for YouTube to kick them off. The problem with YouTube and all of these businesses is they might as well make one rule. Instead of putting all these crazy rules all over the place, either explain what you mean better, or just go ahead and tell them, we can ban you, and they do. They have it at the very bottom of all their regulations. For any time we want to get rid of you, it doesn't matter. They have that there in that little tiny asterisk box at the bottom. But that's what they should do, is just say one line, one paragraph, explaining, we will do what we want. If you don't listen to us, we're going to ban you. All this other nonsense doesn't even matter at this point because there's no one that can go on the internet right now and just speak freely. Everyone has to watch what they're saying, what they're doing. We get that this is supposed to be someone else's platform, but simultaneously, you opted for that platform to be something that was beyond you. And by doing so, you made it a business inside of America. And businesses in America are controlled by American government. And Mr. Dorsey has another thing coming. Tell me he is waking up in the morning every day and shaving his face and taking care of his family and all of this other stuff. I mean, for goodness sake, the man has the coke ring. He thinks he's some kind of hot crap when he actually looks as if he's on some kind of Valium. Really, he's the slowest talking, most boring cat out there. And that's your CEO of Twitter. He can't even formulate his own sentence. Everything is if he only typed the way he talked. We don't imagine that a CEO out there that looked like this would be on the pro-Trump side. Of course, he's completely and utterly brainwashed by the universities that he came from. We want to know why it's so important to ban any kind of talk. Ban nudity when it's not needed or it's on the wrong platform. Ban vulgarity, constantly cussing up a storm, or if they're saying something that's so lewd and repulsive and all of that, that you kind of got to get it down because it's a family area. But the internet's not a family area. You and your cohorts in the media, all of you guys have made it a point to where all this vulgarity, all this violence, and all this other stuff is fine as long as it's in the context of movies. But if somebody posts pictures of Antifa in Portland going crazy and acting the fool and trying to burn down churches in Washington, or knocking down statues, those are violent contents, and you're going to get struck. So why is that? Why the difference? Because one's supposed to be fake? We've seen videos online where grandparents are at nursing homes getting beaten up by their very own caretakers, and you allowed that on the internet. You allowed that on YouTube. Google itself can shut down anything on YouTube that they don't like. They did it to us. It wasn't YouTube that made the final decision to cut our channel. It was Google. And Google is the most powerful company on this planet. They can direct any kind of viewpoint they want to towards you. Go on your search bar and type in Donald Trump and hit search. All of their listings is something bad about Donald Trump. It's all of the channels that are always constantly attacking him first. There's no wonder why people think that there is some kind of hoax against Donald Trump. There's no wonder why people wonder if it's all a frame job, a setup, a scam by the Democrat Party and its liberal media mob. Why wouldn't they think that the way everyone acts? These same fools that are in the media outlet, on daytime TV, content providers, etc., they'll probably secretly go behind everyone's back and vote Trump anyway. They make too much money talking about Trump 24/7. So where's their bread and butter if they don't vote for the guy? It's kind of a duality of the situation type of deal. People like Jack Dorsey are in control of not only social media and cable networks, they are in control of all types of situations. Markets, commodities, stocks, doctors, lawyers, politicians, governors, senators, and particularly fondness of theirs, congressmen. And I implore each and every one of you, go out, be a beacon for your community. You're better than most of the people out there, believe me, especially a large majority of the liberals. Go out and be something. Be a senator, be a congressman, be a governor. Try. Because if you don't do it, they will, and they'll have control over your children's life, your grandchildren's life. And what they choose to do today is what's going to affect you for the next 4 to 10 years, maybe longer. You can see it in Jack Dorsey's eyes. He averts his eyes. He's just averting his eyes, looking down. He knows deep down, he knows this is a very biased take. And he has to sell it to everyone else as, oh, no, it's not. We have a policy. You had no way to understand where the distribution from Trump's tax return came from. You had no clue where New York Post originally got its information from. All you knew was what New York Post was putting out there, and you shut it down. We asked before when Stanford and UCLA, liberal colleges, mind you, came out and said that the Cooties 19 wasn't as bad as everyone's making it out to be. They came out both saying that not too long ago, and that caused part of a problem with our dismissal of YouTube and Google. We asked them in our appeal, would you silence them? And now we're seeing that they probably would. Colleges that have been around for decades can be shut down by Google, Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. With a wave of a hand, all of a sudden your opinion is gone. No one can agree, no one can disagree, and no one will ever know. Traditionally, if you go on the internet, you're going to find out that most social media sites are anti-Trump. And it's selective journalism. It's not that people aren't interested in Trump. It's not that people aren't interested in the Republican Party or the conservative group. Quite honestly, it's the other way around. You can't talk your opinion as a conservative or a Republican online, because there's always some liberal nut job at the end of a keyboard somewhere flagging you down, acting as if what you said was so terribly horrendous and they themselves are the ones that are the attacker. All you did was make your opinion. And I think with this, it shows how important your opinion is, how important the First Amendment is, and even more so how important your second is to protect your First Amendment. Anyway, have a good night, a good morning, a good evening, whichever. Please like, share, and subscribe. We really do appreciate that around here. Also, drop a comment down below. We like to talk with you. We like to pick your brain. And if you have any ideas for new videos, go ahead and post it down below. Also, don't forget to hit the notification bell. If you don't hit the notification bell, you might have a problem getting our videos. God bless each and every one of you. See ya.